Hi there, it's Verity from inkybutterfly.wordpress.com, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK, and I'm going to share a card with you today made with this retiring stamp set called Lovely Is the Day. It's a layering stamp set, beg your pardon. So there are elements in there that give you an outline, and then there are coordinating images that then can be used to fill in and effectively colour the image for you without having to use any other tools. So that's what we're going to do today. The colour palette is going to be Blush and Bride and Mint Macaron, so some nice soft pastel-y tones, and then the outline images I'm going to be stamping with Memento ink. That's the water-based ink that Stampin' Up carry at the moment, so that's what we're going to be doing. So I have done a bit of prep beforehand, in that I've got some idea of where I'm going with it and what bits and pieces I'm going to need. So I've cut a card base from Blush and Bride cardstock to match the ink, and I've also cut a couple of layers which will fit the image. I'm going to be using this image today. That will fit the image. So my piece of Whisper White is actually 2 by 3.5 inches, and then I've cut a corresponding piece for layering out of Mint Macaron, which is 2.25 by 3 3/4. So that's where we're aiming. So we're going to have something that looks a little like this, with a sentiment across, maybe some ribbon too. Okay, so let's start by getting our card base prep. So this card base, I wanted to add some interest to the bottom by using one of the other images, which is this one, which is like a sort of, let me show you on the, so I'm going to use this little image here and do some tone on tone stamping around the bottom of the card. So I'm going to grab the Blush and Bride ink pad here. And I've just got some scrap copy paper underneath there just to stop any overlap onto the grid paper, just so I can keep it clean. And I'm just positioning that somewhere around there, and it'll just, so even though it's tone on tone, you do get like this darker colour coming out. I'm just trying not to have a gap in that corner, just by sort of twizzling the stamp a little bit. And I might just go slightly further up the side a little as well. Just to sort of frame that panel that's going to go in the middle. So that's all I want to do on there, just to add some interest to the bottom of the card. Okay, so that's that piece done. Let's just set that to one side for a moment, and we'll just close that ink pad just for a sec. So on this little teeny tiny piece, we're going to stamp our main floral image with Memento ink. Just get that ink pad ready. So there we are, we've got some just light tapping onto the surface of the ink pad. The Memento is a foam, no it isn't, it's a felt ink pad, so it's a little firmer, so it will tolerate a bit of tapping, whereas the classic ink pads, the Stampin' Up ink pads, are a foam base, so you don't want to be pressing too hard on that. So the beauty of photopolymer means that I can now hover my image over that and decide whether I want it this way, that way, and it's gonna fit basically. So that looks okay-ish from here. I say that the camera's in a bit of a more forward position, which means I have to sort of stamp in front of me rather than being able to get my head over it. Okay, but we get a nice, clean, crisp image. The photopolymer stamps that Stampin' Up! Produce are phenomenal quality. So you get a lovely, crisp image. Okay. So the two coordinating stamps I've put there, so the leaf and the bloom there. So let's use some macaron first. Get those leaves in. So again, just look, it just rests on the ink pad, and it's lovely and inked. Okay, all right. Let's get that out of the way. So again, you would want to try and look through your stamp as best you can. I'm going to try and use the camera, so this might not be bang on, but the image is sort of more of a, I don't know, messy watercolour kind of look anyway, so if it was slightly off, it probably wouldn't show that much anyway. So that's added the colour to the leaves, and then we'll bring back in the Blushing Bride. Again, just lightly tap that on there, and that just goes somewhere in the middle, somewhere like there. So it just gives a hint of colour without fully colouring in the image. You could go over that a little with some Wink of Stella or something to fill that in a little bit more, but that's what we have right now. Okay, right, I'm going to get that stuck down onto its layer anyway, straight away. So just run some snail across the back of that. Now, I like to do, when I'm lining up a layer that I've already cut, I like to sort of put it in a landscape fashion, if you like, and if I get the three edges lined up, in theory the fourth should fall into place, so that looks about right. Oh. And it doesn't stick properly until you give it a good press. So there we go, that's our topper, if you like. So this is how we're looking right now. Pretty. A really nice and simple layout. Not dissimilar to a lot of the cards I make, and layers always make things really pretty. And you know, it won't be one of my cards if I don't stick some dimensionals in there somewhere. So I think this guy's going to get popped up onto some dimensionals. But what I wanted to do was have a think about whether I actually wanted to add any ribbon to this across the bottom. Not across the card, but across this little bit, and I think that might add just a little bit of something. This is a shimmery ribbon. It's in mint macaron. It's a retiring ribbon, really pretty. So shall we add some of that, just for some extra? I think that looks quite pretty actually. Okay, let's do that. You may have seen me do this before. So what I do is I just secure it with some lines of snail across there. Position it where I want it, so I'm just having it kind of underneath that bottom leaf with a bit of that stem sticking out at the bottom, so get that bit looped around. Probably don't need all that. Just lop that off. Might add a bow as well. So I'm just going to lay that down loosely and see how wonky that is right now. But if you grid paper that I'm working on is really useful for just making sure things are lined up, so you could actually use your grid paper to just, she says, let's do it sideways, that might be easier. So if you get your cardstock straight, and then get this straight. There we go. And that's all secured at the back. No one's ever going to see that, so it doesn't really matter how messy that makes. that is. Okay, right, let's whack some dimensionals on there. Like I say, these things, I just love them. And I think popping up your layers really just gives another dimension to your card and makes it just look that little bit extra special without having to do too much messing about. Doesn't have to be complicated to make it look pretty. Okay, so I was kind of wrestling with the sentiment. Now originally I picked out this one, but I felt like it was going to be too big with the focus image, so I actually went with the long skinny one. You fill this world with beauty. I think that's quite cool. It's quite a pretty sentiment. So I wanted to share a little tip on how to get a long skinny sentiment like this straight on a block, which is also no mean feat. And again, with the photopolymer it's even easier because you can see through them. So what I do is I lay it down on onto the grid paper like so. And again, because I'm over, you're over there in terms of where my head would normally be. It's a little harder for me to do at this angle, but you get the idea. You can actually see through it and line up your lettering so that you can make sure that that is straight. And then likewise, when you hover your block over, line your block up with the lines on the grid paper too, and then theoretically it'll be straight or near enough for stamping onto your card. Okay, so that's now picked up and secured onto the block straight as we can. So the idea was that I'd have, maybe it's going to overlap this ribbon slightly, and then we'll put like a little, or maybe just above it, maybe, onto a strip of white cardstock. So the debate now is what ink to use. Do you use mint macaron? Will it be too faint? Right, let's try. Let's go with mint macaron to start off with and see what we end up with. I had a scrap of paper, scrap of cardstock, there it is. I've got a scrap of cardstock here. Let's bring in the mint macaron to start off with and see how this looks and see whether it will be so again, just lightly onto the so again, we've lined everything up using grid paper, so again, line it up, oops, with your grid paper, and then line up your stamp with grid paper, and everything should work out near enough straight. So just down, I'm just applying pressure to that. Okay, so that's how that looks. Focus. There you go. It actually comes out a bit darker than you might imagine. So do we think that would look good? I think it might actually, rather than, because I was umming and ahhing whether we needed to use the black to make it stand out, but I think using the black might be a little bit harsh with the soft look that we're trying to achieve. So we just need to trim that down. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, which I just keep off to the side here. And this is how I cut down these sentiments. So like I say, this should be pretty straight. Now you can't see that, can you? No. Let's move it up as far as I can. Ideally I'd want to put this against the butt bar. I want to put the work up here so I've got room. Right, okay. So this butt bar will make sure that your card stock is straight in the trimmer, okay? We've done our best to make sure that the stamp was as straight as possible, but if you push down your ruler on your trimmer and look over it, you should be able to line it up with one or other of the little ridges on the plastic ruler, and you will see that ain't far off. Okay, so the cutting channel's here, so I reckon we're close enough on the bottom. I don't think there's anything that needs to be cut off on the bottom. I think it's close enough and straight enough. Okay, so what we want to do is kind of eyeball the gap there, so pretty much the width of the cutting channel. So I'm going to push that over to this side and line that up so that cutting channel is spaced roughly where the same distance from the bottom. Just going to line that up. Ooh. Move the scoring blade out of the way, and then I'm going to come in with the blade and just trim that away. So there we go, we're pretty even with the top and bottom border there. Okay, even enough anyway. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this end, but I'm going to leave the other end until I've worked out exactly how long we need it. And then I'll probably just cut it with scissors. Maybe even like flag it at an angle, maybe. See, that looks a bit chunky now, so I'm not actually super sure. So maybe it does need to go a little further down, and we want to cut it. We do want to cut it close to the tail, I think. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to grab some scissors and trim that off. And I think we'll start putting this together now. There we go. Yep, yes, I think that'll be lovely. Okay, I'm not going to layer it. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. And then this end, because this is raised up, this end will need a dimensional underneath it, whereas we'll just put some adhesive on the other end. So we'll just pop a dimensional on that end. And we'll start putting this together now. There we are. So it's just over to the left a little, straight as you like. Like so. And then I'll take off that one. We'll use a little bit of wet glue because we're going to be adhering this over that ribbon slightly. So let's just put a bit of that on. So the wet glue will give you a bit of wriggle room as well, so if this end's sorted out and in place, then the rest will follow. So I think I like it a bit of a gap. So let's go with that. That'll take a minute just to hold. And I think we're going to end up covering all that ribbon, aren't we? But you know what? Wasn't sure we were going to go with it. What do we think? Do we think we need a ribbon? Should I show you how to tie a bow anyway? So I've just got a length of the ribbon, and I find the easiest method is to use the 2 bunny ears. So I just loop it around my fingers and then make those bunny ears and then just tie them in a simple knot. Just let it twirl around itself. Now, depending on how slippery or textured your ribbon is, you may find this more or less tricky. And then you can fiddle about making the loops as large or small as you like. And I don't tend to cut the tails until I'm absolutely happy with how it looks in terms of the, just press that down a bit more. So I like to see how it looks before trimming it off. See, now I'm going to be faffing about with whether I even want this on now. Could tie a knot as well, that's another option. As I bet it goes there, bits, yeah, okay. Right, let's grab a mini glue dot. These things are really nice for sticking down bows. It's a pressure adhesive, so I'm just going to press that onto that dot and pick it up off the release paper. Position that so you can still see the first letter there on that sentiment, and then I can come in with my scissors and trim off those tails. Nice sharp scissors for cutting ribbon. Now, I'd like to just put something over that just to make sure that sticks down. Okay. And I might, you know what, I am going to add some wink of Stella, I think. Just a little bit. Just to the petals. Like that. Hey, yeah. Let's go to town. Let's add some bling as well, shall we? Shall we add some of the champagne rhinestones? Those look nice. Let's grab one of those. So let's go with that. Let's have one there. One on here. And maybe another one up there. Is that called, that's a visual triangle, so it sort of draws you into the focal image as well. Put those away. There we go. How's about that then? I think that's turned out really well. There we go. So there will be a blog post that goes with this, to which I will link all the products, and I hope you've really enjoyed that. Really like this colour palette, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay, have a great day.